Hey, gun people! Man, this is, I've been kind of keeping up with this. I was going to do updates. If you remember, I did a video a while back where Amber Guyger, a Dallas female police officer, got off duty, went to the wrong address, or not the wrong address, the wrong floor of her apartment. She lives on, I think, on 3, and she went to the 4th floor by accident. Came to her door, and when she went to stick the key in the door was a little ajar. She thought somebody was in the apartment. She just got off duty after working 12, 16 hours, whatever it is. So she said she was tired. When she opened the door, she saw a black man in there, thought he was an intruder. The guy started yelling and rushed at her, and she drew her gun, shot, fired, and the guy died. And now there's a big scandal because she's white, and the guy she killed was black. Nothing else matters in today's day and age. It's only about color. And, you know, this case is no different. So they've been making a mockery out of this case in the legal system. They've already got a great chance for a retrial. So I'm going to discuss a couple things that the investigator found from my investigator point on why this is relevant and why the jury should be taking this. I'll explain kind of what the jury's kind of hearing and why they're hearing it and what the prosecutor's saying. So I don't expect this to go too long, but you know how I am. Sometimes I'll just get talking into this and rattle on. So let's listen to see what this woman says.
Former Dallas police officer Amber Guyger arrived in court today for the first day of her trial. Guyger is charged with murder after she shot and killed a man last September after she claimed she thought he was an intruder in her apartment.
Oh, yeah. So they charged her with murder. Okay, there's a thing that's in the prosecution world. It's called overcharging. Sometimes they overcharge in order to get the person to plea because their exposure is more. The bigger the crime, the more the exposure. This woman, for going to the wrong apartment and shooting a guy and killing him, is facing 99 years. Now, there's a lot of people that'll automatically, she's a cop and she's guilty. And that's a slippery slope, people. Look, I'm always exposing bad cops. I got plenty of videos where I trash law enforcement and government. But to automatically hang every person that goes out there without any facts just because they're a cop is no different than blame every black person just because they're black. I mean, it's a slippery slope. It shouldn't be going on. We've crossed the times now to where criminals are good. Anybody that's not a criminal is bad. Anybody that holds a criminal accountable is bad. Homeless and being a bum is great and prosperity. Being a single mom and getting your kid killed, that's all great and wonderful. And anybody that speaks out against that is somehow racist, sexist, or bad. I mean, it's crazy. So they charged her with murder. Really, really bad charging. There's no way, I'm saying it right now, there's no way she gets convicted of murder. And if she does, it absolutely 100% will be overturned. She had no intent. There is no way they're proving intent. They're in day 3 of the trial. There's no smoking gun that she had a secret relationship, that she was buying dope and he owed her money. There's nothing. These people didn't know each other. He lived on the exact apartment above her, never saw him before, never met him, went to the wrong apartment at night, opened the door. He started yelling because somebody came in his apartment, get the hell out. She thought he was going for a gun. She drew her gun and shot. Should she have shot him? No. Should she have been in the wrong apartment? No. But there was no intent to go out and commit a crime, and that's very important when you start charging somebody with certain crimes, because murder is a specific intent crime. You have to prove intent, and there's no way they're going to prove that. So she's not getting murdered. And some people are saying they just want to set up Dallas because it's predominantly black, and there's all the, they're removing any Civil War posters, and the city's going broke, and we have to increase welfare. It's a sanctuary city, and it's run by the liberal left overspending liberal crap that's ruining Texas. So they're wanting a riot, and they think if they charge her with murder, when the jury doesn't convict her, there'll be riots. That way they can maybe intimidate the jury into voting guilty to prevent riots. I mean, it's just crazy the way they're playing the system. But all right, let's move on.
The victim, a 26-year-old Botham Jean, was her upstairs neighbor. Guyger told investigators that after a 15-hour shift, she parked on the 4th floor instead of the 3rd where she lived and found the apartment's door ajar.
She walks past 16 different apartments and fails to register the number 4 on any single one of them.
Okay, so that's the prosecutor's opening statement. And of course, he's going to make it out that she did this intentionally. There's no way you could walk past 16 doors and not know you were in the wrong apartment. Well, during the investigation, they found out like 46 out of 200 residents have gone to the wrong apartment and tried their key. The rooms are not labeled big. There's not big numbers. It's on a side. It's not on the door. The floors look the same at night. There's not good lighting. So it's very reasonable when you have 46 out of 200 residents that told the cop, I've gone to the wrong apartment and tried my key. That makes it a reasonable thing that this has happened before. It takes away any ability for them to show that she intended to go to his apartment and shoot this poor unarmed black doctor, you know, because she was out on kicks after working 12-hour shifts. She just wanted a little excitement in her life, so she decided to go shoot some innocent unarmed guy for GP. Anybody that believes that is just stupid. But anyway, let's move on. Ain't no shortage of stupid in Dallas, let me tell you.
The case has sparked outrage and questions like how she...
Outrage. Yeah. Blocking the roads, stopping cars with police protection. Really? That's outrage? I mean, they have, this is before the trial. They haven't gotten any facts yet, and this is what happens. And this is what government allows. And this is when government tells you, give us your guns. We'll protect you. When you give up your protection or your ability to protect yourself, government gets to choose when and who and what color they protect and who they don't protect. Bad move.
She didn't notice she was on the wrong floor.
In front of Botham's apartment is this extremely obvious bright red.
First of all, it's not that bright. Second of all, he's pulling out something that wasn't. That ain't a portion of a door. He pulled out a piece of cloth with it. And any good defense attorney is going to tear that up. And if the defense attorney was right, he'd be like, yeah, this is really easy to tell what color it is in daylight, a dull red, but in low light conditions at night, when my client went to the door, it didn't look like it did when this attorney tried to trick you jurors in daylight in a courtroom with fluorescent lights, very visible against his dark backdrop of a suit. Obviously, it's going to look a lot more outstanding. See, the prosecutor thinks you people on jury are stupid, and you can't figure that out. This at night does not look like this in the day with a dark background. But I digress. I'm not the defense attorney. I don't know what he said.
Floor mat.
Her lawyer attempted to explain the mistake.
38 tenants that lived on the 3rd and 4th floor reported doing the exact same thing.
That's a key point. That is so critical in this woman's defense that if 38 other people have done this before, how can they say this cop did it like the prosecutor's opening statement? She walked past 6 rooms without noticing. How could anybody do that unless she intended? Well, 36 other people did it who live there. So obviously it ain't that hard. And my guess is if I brought the dumbass prosecutor there, he'd probably do it. But I digress. Let's move on.
How is that unreasonable?
Today, the prosecutor revealed a phone conversation Guyger had with her partner and alleged lover minutes before pulling into the wrong parking spot.
Whatever is on her mind after that conversation has consumed her attention entirely.
After the shooting last year, Guyger was put on leave and then fired 2.
Okay, so they fired her almost immediately, which I think was BS. But they did it. And the reason they did it is to say, don't sue us, sue her. We took action. We defended our policy. We only hire the best. They hired her, they let her work the road, and as soon as she makes a mistake, suddenly she's no good and she should have never been hired. Because that's what government does. They hire the incompetent, so they're incompetent, so they can say we need more money to hire more because we can't do the job. They don't say we can't do the job because we hire incompetents, and we set people up who can't do the job, and then when they make a mistake, it's like, you know, and these people come here and go, well, she just needs more training. It's not about training people. Stop saying that. You're following the government narrative. Government always loves to say we're increasing our training. We need more training budget. Our officers don't have training. We don't have enough money. We need to grow our training budget. That's not the issue. If I grab a kindergartner out of fucking kindergarten and put him through a police academy and train him for 2 years and then put him out there as a cop, who thinks he's going to be a great cop? Even if I put him in school for 2 years out of kindergarten, he's not capable of doing the job. Jobs have specific capabilities, okay? And when we start hiring people because of quotas and sex and colors because it's PC and it's cool and it's stylish and all this other BS, and then when they screw up and they get hurt, people are like, oh, it's not fair. They're picking on her because she's a woman. No, they're picking on her because she's white. No, they're picking on her because she's a minority. They come up with all these excuses when in fact, it's because nobody ever told the person in the first place, you shouldn't have been in the job. We put you in here because we're trying to be nice, to make you feel good, to promote political correctness, to show that we're not biased, to show how open we are. So you set somebody up to fail, and then when they fail, you go, oh, not our fault, it's their fault. Defend yourself. See you later. Total BS. And I'm not saying she was right. People are going to come here, you're just protecting her because you got... I'm not protecting her. I want what's fair and reasonable, and I want a fair standard across the board. I don't want somebody getting attacked because she's a woman, because she's white, because she's a cop, because she's not a cop. That shouldn't be the issue. The issue is reasonableness, and did she have intent? My big thing as a cop was always, what was the intent? And the law is based on a lot of intent. Now, you can commit a lot of crimes without intending to do that. Through reckless, malice, negligence. There's a lot of ways to commit crimes. But they're not as egregious with no intent. Egregious crimes that have the most penalty and that you can be locked up is when you intend to commit a crime. That's like when you go in and steal a candy bar. It's petty theft. That's not a big crime. However, if you talk about it in a car with two guys and two of you go in and one person distracts the thing and then you steal a candy bar, you did the same crime except there was planning, there was a conspiracy, and you went in the store with intent to commit a crime. That becomes burglary and that becomes a felony. So intent matters, and they are not proven intent on this woman.
2 weeks later, she was initially charged with manslaughter, but a grand jury indicted her for murder in November.
So, initially charged with manslaughter, which would have been a more appropriate crime. And they went to the grand jury, and because there was all this outrage, because all the future doctors of America were rioting and tearing up streets and burning things down, taking time out of their doctor studies, that now the grand jury is like, oh man, if we just charge her with manslaughter, people will be upset. We better charge her with murder. Again, when justice is dealt out by popular opinion, that becomes a problem.
The jury has already been told they will likely be sequestered for the duration of the trial to keep them from seeing news coverage of the case. The trial is expected to last 2 weeks.
Okay, so there's some other things that came up in here that's kind of funny on what the judge is letting them hear. Here's a picture of the park, South Side Flats in Dallas. Oh, look at all the nice protesters. Look at that, nice out there, taking time out of their doctor studies to protest. Isn't that nice of them? So this case came up when Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke were having a debate during a Texas election, and they tried to paint Ted Cruz as, oh, he was defending the cop unreasonably. So they put this headline, and this little left-wing site puts out, oh, watch Ted Cruz say the cop who killed the unarmed man in his own home should not be fired. Well, that's kind of not what he said in that way. But listen to what Ted Cruz says about this.
This month in Dallas, Officer Amber Guyger shot Botham John, a black man, in his own apartment. Why did you...
Shot a black man. Why does that matter? Why couldn't he just have shot somebody in their own apartment? Why does it have to be a black man? Does anybody think that Amber Guyger picked that apartment out of all the other apartments just because he was black? Or do you think that if she found anybody in her apartment and they started screaming at her that she would have pulled her gun and reacted the same way? There's no doubt in my mind if the white guy would have been there and screamed and charged her and she thought she would have shot him too. This is not about color, but everybody has to make it that way.
Caution Representative O'Rourke and others not to jump to conclusions in this case when the Texas Rangers and the Dallas County District Attorney said she committed manslaughter.
Okay, the reason why they said the Texas Rangers, when the Texas Rangers first and the Texas Rangers is basically, in California, when I worked as a cop, they're kind of like the DOJ. Everybody thinks they're this great, super secret, fantastic, whatever. They're investigators that work for the state prosecutors instead of investigators that work for the city or local DA or the sheriff's department. So they're all investigators throughout the state. They just happen to work for the state. So when there's a case that happens in a city that's high profile, they will call in the state investigators to come in and do it, to try to give this non-biased somebody outside law enforcement, local agencies. It doesn't mean they're great. It's no different than if they called in the FBI. It would be no difference. The FBI comes in, because they're FBI, somehow they got more credibility. That's not true. In fact, in my book, they have less credibility. But I digress. I just want people to understand who the Texas Ranger are. Basically, they're state investigators that work for state prosecutors instead of local investigators that work for the local DA's office.
What happened to Mr. John was horrific. Nobody should be in their own home and be shot and killed in their own home. It was tragic. Now, the officer, as I understand it, has contended that it was a tragic mistake. It was a case where she thought she was in her own apartment. She thought he was an intruder. Right now, today, I don't know what happened that evening. Congressman ORourke doesn't know what happened that evening.
Even now, we're still getting a picture because they're only in day 3 of the trial. This was like right after she was arrested and right after the investigation started.
But he immediately called for firing the officer. I think that's a mistake. Look, we have a criminal justice system that will determine what happened that night. If she violated the law, if she did that intentionally, she'll face the consequences.
Okay, so in all fairness, I'm not a big Ted Cruz flag waver. I mean, I think he's fairly conservative, but I also think he's been in office too long and he's just a career politician. So he doesn't have a whole lot of credibility in my book. Obviously, he's better than ORourke. I mean, hell, but anyway.
But without knowing the facts before a trial, before a jury's heard the evidence, Congressman ORourke is ready to convict her, ready to fire her.
ORourke, convicted felon, burglary, drunk driving, ran from the cops, but he's a left-winger, and he promotes sanctuary cities, and he wants open borders. So he's a great guy. He's a hero. All those left-wing heroes have the same mindset. People come here, I got a gun, I'm a liberal, and I like guns. Well, that's because you're an idiot, and you're voting away your rights to own a gun, and you're a hypocrite. Because the left is totally against freedoms and gun ownership, and for somebody to support them and say, I own a gun, you're an idiot, and you ain't gonna own a gun long if your freaking side wins. But I digress.
And I'll tell you, it's a troubling pattern. Over and over again, Congressman ORourke, when faced with an issue about police and law enforcement, he sides against the police.
Well, me and him might have something in common there. I mean, look, if you want to watch this, he makes a good point. I agree with him on this. People jump to conclusions, want a hanger without hearing any of the facts. It's BS, but it's also BS when the system lies and covers up and they don't hold their people accountable and they let cops go out there and shoot chihuahuas and miss and kill people and they justify it as a justified shooting, or the cops spray and pray and shoot some guy who pulls out a cell phone and they end up killing 3 civilians because they miss him because they're just shooting, spraying and praying, and it's put out as justified. So, there's two sides, yin and yang to every story. So I wanted to cover a couple things that I wanted to cover that so far has come out in the case. And look, I didn't run spell check on this. I just typed real quick. These are my notes. So if somebody wants to come here and go, you didn't spell, or you shut up, you freaking crybabies. I'm trying to educate you on the legal system from my experience. If you don't like it, don't come here. But for the ones that want to come here, I'm glad you're here. Here we go. Partner erased text. They're making this a big deal. She had an ex-partner who she had a relationship with, and I can't really figure out, I haven't been able to read enough to whether they're still in a relationship, whether they're not seeing each other, they used to date, or they're still dating. Obviously, they're still friends, and I think she started texting him. This is very common, and this is a problem being a cop, and I never like this. Cops can't talk and have zero support system. The only person a cop can talk to that doesn't have to give up what he says is a freaking attorney. And the attorney's not your friend, and you can't really, they're getting paid, and they just want the facts, and they don't want to be your friend. They want to get paid, do their job, and move on. They're never going to see you again. So, when you're a cop and you get involved in an incident, you can't talk to your partner. You're on videotape. You can't text. You can't phone call anybody. You can't talk. Now, I do think you can talk to your wife. There's still spousal privilege, but remember, spousal privilege is held by the spouse. So if you and your wife get in a fight between now and then, or if you're all on rocky roads and you say something to her thinking it's under spousal privilege, she can say, I don't mind. I'll testify, and she can get on the stand and give it up. She does not have to say, oh no, we have spousal privilege and I can't talk. It doesn't restrict her. It gives you both the ability not to talk. So, cops, when you get an incident, you're screwed. You have nobody to talk to. You're immediately isolated. You're under IA. IA orders you not to talk to anybody or they'll charge you with another crime and you can be fired. So you can't discuss the case. And if you have any friends and you talk to them when they do their investigation, they're going to say, did he ever talk to you about the case? Well, what did he say? Blah, blah, blah. Guess what? Now you're a witness. You're going to be on the stand testifying what he told you. If she went home and her neighbor goes, hey man, I'm really sorry. I know it was an accident. I'm sure you'll do fine. Don't worry about it. She's like, yeah, I can't believe I did it. I'm so sorry. That man died. Guess what? He's going to be on the stand having to say that now. So you can't talk to anybody. For her partner to erase the text, they're making it sound like they had some nefarious, secret plan, conspiracy to hide it. Look, if I had a buddy text me and tell me things and I knew he was in trouble, I'd erase the text too. And you know what? When they called me and asked me what we talked about, I'd be like, I don't remember. If you can refresh my recollection, maybe I'll remember. Because you ain't getting me to hang out my friend when I talk to unless you got some evidence. And then once you show me that I said something, then maybe I'll agree or not agree or whether I'll remember it or not. But for a partner to erase the text, I got no problem with that. And for you idiots out there, oh, Rick, you just admitted you covered for a cop. I did not admit. I'm not covering up for somebody committing a crime. I'm covering up for somebody that needs some emotional support and that I'm a friend, and I'm not going to use that against them just because, everybody wants to hang a guy out and nobody can be human. So that's my stance. You don't like it. I don't care. Texas Ranger Investigator. A lot of people went to the wrong apartment. Very key. Also, they asked the Texas Ranger, do you think she committed a crime? The Texas Ranger that investigated this said, no, I do not think she committed a crime. What's really important about that statement is the judge said the jury can't hear it. This is when people get pissed off at juries when they give bad conclusions. Other people, the news, they have all this information. Everybody knows that it's bullshit. And then the jury comes out with some freaking crazy jury and everybody's like, what the hell? How could anybody come to that conclusion? Because the judge gets to block and play favoritism. Did I say the judge was black? And that she's kind of rooting for the other guy? But anyway, it's not about color. Remember, I said that. Did I say that the Texas Ranger Investigator was black? Oh, nobody wants to hear that. Never mind. It's not about color. This whole trial is nothing. Not to mention the judge refused to allow this to be heard outside of Dallas County. They wanted a change of venue. Now, most courts will always say, no, we don't need, because everybody tries to get a change of venue, and they claim that, the jury's going to be, tainted, and we can't get a fair trial. In this case, this is a prime example of when a jury should have been moved. There should have been a change of venue. Dallas County is out for blood. It is nothing but a racial hotspot. There is riots and complaints, and the cops don't have enough, and they're shooting black people who aren't doing nothing but going to doctor school, and everybody's innocent that gets shot. I mean, it's just, Dallas is a freaking racial hot point. And now you have a black man killed by a white woman in his own apartment that he shouldn't have been killed. It was a bad accident, and it resulted in his death. It's a horrible crime. I gotta say that because there'll be people who are, you're just offending her because she's white and you don't like black. Shut up, you freaking crybabies. So, look, this is all about color. This case should have been moved. I think they have a mistrial on the fact that the judge would not move it. So, why that's good for the defense is if the jury, through pressure, finds her or guilty, the defense has a perfect case to try for, an acquittal or an overturn and to appeal that and get the conviction overturned because it was such a hot spot, because the judge should have moved it, because the judge showed bias by not moving it. But, that I didn't put that on my list, but I want to cover that. Let's see. Now, because her partner erased text, her partner shot a teen doctor, I think, for committing a crime or something, and he was innocent, of course, on his way to doctor school. And because he shot him, now Teen Doctors of America are protesting and wanting the case reopened, and now they're going after her partner. Why? Because he has a relationship with her. They want her. Therefore, anybody that likes to support her, they're going to go after him. And now they're claiming that he got in a shooting years ago, and they want it reopened. and they want to have another witch burning in the town square because he's a white guy. And I'm sure they didn't say, oh, you know what? I think they did say it was a teen that he shot. But anyway, this case is got a lot of little tentacles that stretch out in a lot of ways, so it's hard to keep up. But I don't think the jury's convicted for murder, and I ain't even heard a damn trial. So here in the opening argument, the prosecutor they're trying to say that she had a fight or an argument with her boyfriend or her partner, and because she wasn't paying attention, that's why she went to the wrong apartment, and that's why she's at fault. Like nobody has ever had a conversation of their kid getting hurt, or a fight with a spouse, or an argument, or, you know, about to lose your job, or downside. Nobody's had a critical conversation and may not be paying attention and enter the wrong apartment. I know people are going to say, but Rick, she had a gun and she shot him. Well, yeah, I get it. She shouldn't have shot him. But to say because she was having an argument on a phone call, and that's the reason, and therefore she's at fault, and they should charge her with murder? Good grief, people.
This is Botham Shemjan.
In opening arguments, prosecutors said the 26-year-old was watching TV, eating vanilla ice cream in his apartment when former Dallas...
Oh, if he was eating vanilla ice cream, he's got to be innocent. Now, all the news reports when this came out is he was in there smoking weed and they found weed in his apartment. And then there was big teen protests about how they're trying to smear his good name. I don't know how smearing his good name says he was smoking weed and he had weed in his apartment. Rick, you can't say that! Oh, okay. Remember, truth is the new hate speech. Just remember that.
Officer Amber Guyger walked in and shot him in the chest.
No opportunity for him to surrender. Bang, bang, rapid, double tap.
Prosecutors maintain Guyger was so consumed with a phone conversation she just had with Martin Rivera, her police partner turned love interest, that she didn't realize she entered the wrong apartment despite Jean having a red doormat. On the stand, Rivera testified the two exchanged explicit...
Oh, I guess that was the mat on the door. I thought he said that was the color of the door. Maybe I misheard that.
...messages the day of the shooting, while Guyger worked a 13-and-a-half-hour shift.
Did she complain of being ill?
No.
Did she complain of having any kind of undue stress in her life?
No.
The defense maintains Guyger was fatigued because she worked 40 hours in 4 days.
What?
40 hours in 4 days? You're fatigued? Good Lord. People ain't never been in a damn military, work 16 hours a day for months. But I digress.
You will see and hear and experience is the perfect storm of innocent circumstances.
Also on the stand, Jean's sister, Alyssa Findley, who told jurors she hasn't accepted her brother is gone and still calls his phone, hoping he answers.
Well, if you're still calling a person dead hoping he's answering, you got some problems with reality. Rick, you can't say that. That's, to me, that's not, that doesn't give a whole lot of credibility. But it definitely pulls on the emotional purse strings. It definitely makes the victim look more like a victim. Look, the guy was in his apartment minding his own business and he shouldn't have been shot. She was wrong. I just don't get why we got to play all this, make it out to some conspiracy that she planned it because she's white and he's black. It's just absurd to me.
I miss him every single day that he's not here.
With 911 the night of the shooting.
So what happened to those messages?
Well, Guyger and Rivera, they deleted them. They were recovered, but when asked on the stand today why Rivera deleted them, he said that he did so because he didn't want to relive what happened that night. But tonight, some civil rights attorneys are calling for him to be investigated.
Look, I'm sorry. He deleted it. That was smart. That is a cop. Anybody with common sense, if you have a conversation or a text, if somebody sends you a text of child porn, let's say, you've got somebody, get your phone number and they're trying to set you up. So they text you child porn. Are you not going to delete that? Or are they later going to say, you deleted it because you're guilty? How about I deleted it because I didn't want to see it and I didn't know who said it? But obviously in this case, this guy deleted, I'd have deleted it too. If you send me a text, if somebody mails me something and say, hey man, you need to cover this, but I didn't want to send it over digital, I don't want a record, and you mail me a letter, and I've gotten a couple letters with no return address, believe me, I open it up and the envelope goes in the trash, in a common dumpster trash. Not my trash, common dumpster, although it has my address. But anyway, I don't keep anything of evidence at my house. And you know what? Whatever. I mean, I don't have a problem with them deleting this. I think it was smart. And they recovered it. Big deal. They recovered it. So what? What did you talk about? I don't know. You recovered the tape. Play it, and I'll tell you if that sounds like me and if I remember it. It was at night. It was panicked. She was upset. I was upset. A guy was dying. Why do I want to save that? What, do you save that so you can listen to it later and kind of go, wow, that was a cool night? Of course not. Freaking ridiculous. Anyway. All right, I could go on. This is the lead investigator, and this is where he says he doesn't think she committed a crime.
In her apartment when she encountered the complaining witness.
Yes, I do.
And what is that opinion?
That she believed that there was a burglar in her apartment.
And that it was reasonable?
Yes.
And do you have an opinion as to whether it was reasonable for Amber Guyger to perceive, based on the facts and circumstances, that from her standpoint, that the complaining witness was an intruder in her apartment?
Yes, sir.
And what is your opinion?
That it was a reasonable perception.
And do you have an opinion as to whether it was reasonable based on the facts and circumstances from an ordinary, prudent person in Amber Guyger's position for her to perceive that Botham Jean was a deadly threat?
Yes, sir.
And what is that opinion?
I believe that she did perceive him as a deadly threat.
And you believe that was reasonable based on your training and your experience and your consideration of the totality of the circumstances?
Yes, sir.
As an investigator, that's...
Now, you're hearing all those terms that I use a lot, and people who haven't never testified don't understand the significance of that. Since the Supreme Court makes all these rulings and they use this terminology of totality of circumstances, reasonable and stuff, you have to learn to incorporate that in your vocabulary and in your reports and in your testimony, because that's how it's going to be viewed, and that's how people are going to justify what you're saying is backed up by law. So this, you notice he said, in your experience and in your training and in the totality of the circumstances, do you believe this? To me, this is expert testimony, and a lot of people think opinions aren't allowed in court. That's not true. People give opinions all the time. Only experts can give opinions, and then when you give an opinion, you have to be ruled as an expert. And both lawyers get to ask you questions to prove you're expert. So I was qualified as an expert, I don't know how many times, in several different areas. Expert in drugs and dog use and auto theft and child abduction and I mean, you name it. If you work a specific crime, and every time I was testifying, when the prosecution wanted to get my opinion in, they would ask me and go through a process of getting my kind of like resume. Is it true that you've gone through 200 hours of training? Is it true that you've investigated over 200 crimes in child abduction? Is it true that you've recovered over 40 children from child abduction? Is it true that you've arrested over so many people charged? Okay, based on your experience and training, how many years have you worked child abduction? And how many investigators have you talked to that have worked child abduction? How many cases have you worked involving, so they'd get all these numbers, and then they would turn to the judge and go, Judge, I'd like to offer him as an expert and get his opinion. And the judge would go, okay, that's fine. I'm satisfied that this guy has enough experience. Now, what is the qualification to be an expert? It's pretty low. It's more than the average person. If you have training or knowledge, and that's the terminology, more than the average person, you can be deemed an expert. So it's not that difficult. Somebody says, oh, you're an expert. You think you know everything. Nah, you just know more than the average person. And you have to justify that. So this guy is clearly an expert. He's doing these investigations. I didn't hear how they got his expert testimony, but as an expert, he could be given an opinion. And for the judge to block that from the jury, the defense should be, and remember, this guy's a prosecution witness. So usually the prosecution witness hurts the defense and helps the prosecution. His testimony hurt the prosecution, which tells me he's a good guy. I'm sure somebody said, dude, are you sure you want to say that, man? Come on. Does anybody think it's just by coincidence that a black Texas Ranger got assigned to this case? Well, of course, Rick, they picked the best person and yeah, you're an idiot. Okay, I told you from the beginning, this shouldn't be about color, but this whole damn trial is about color. So the fact that he's a black investigator was picked for that purpose specifically, so they couldn't say, oh, the mean white man made, decisions about this that wasn't true. And that's the problem when you get into color politics. You automatically discredit everybody not the same color, unless it's white, because black people testify against white people all the time. There's no problem. Asian people test against white people all the time. No problem. Anybody can testify against a white person, not a racial issue. The other way, suddenly we've gone in bizarro land and freaking idiots in this country think it's okay. But anyway, this guy really helped the defense. I think the defense ought to certify him as an expert and get his opinion in. And if the judge refuses to get his opinion in, then that's another checkbox for not moving the case to another jurisdiction, for not allowing his testimony in the jury to hear it as an expert when he was clearly an expert and he was a prosecution witness. Normally, if the defense tries to get an expert, the prosecution's like, this person's a convicted felon, they'll try to dig up dirt. The prosecution can't dig up dirt on their own witness because they're using his testimony. So he's the perfect person to give expert testimony on the defense. I don't know why the defense ain't getting him to give expert testimony. And if the judge says no, another checkbox and a good appeal case.
What you have to do, you have to look at the entire full picture of evidence when you're making a decision not only whether to arrest someone or whether to send them to prison, correct?
That's correct.
And today you're telling us that based on everything and based on your training and experience, you don't believe there's even probable cause that Amber Guyger committed any crime, correct?
That's correct.
Woo, dog! Man, you talk about hurting a case. This guy's my star witness. If I'm the defense, I'm replaying his tape. I'm referring to him. I'm sending, every time I turn around, this guy's my star witness. And he's the prosecution witness. So who thinks with the prosecution putting up their lead investigator saying, I don't think she committed a crime and I think she acted reasonably, who thinks she's going to get convicted of murder? Raise your hand. Well, that's because you're an idiot. All right, we'll end that there. I'll try to give you some more updates.